March 15, 1944. 30,000 feet above Brunswick, Germany. The sky is a frozen cobalt blue battlefield, laced with the dirty brown contrails of 1,000 bombers. Lieutenant Jim Harris, flying a P-47 Thunderbolt, is fighting for his life. His world is noise and ice. The roar of his R-2800 engine fills the cockpit, a 2,000 horsepower giant just inches from his feet. Below him, the B-17s, the great flying fortresses, are being savaged. A swarm of Focke-Wulf 190s is diving through the formation, their 20mm cannons turning the bombers into curtains of fire and falling men. Harris is supposed to be their protector. His P-47 is the American solution, a 7-ton brute, the heaviest single-engine fighter of the war. But right now it is a victim. A Focke-Wulf flashes past his nose impossibly fast. Harris slams his stick to the left to follow, his body crushed into the seat by the G-forces. He is on the German's tail. He has the training. He is about to fire when the world explodes. It is not the 190, it is the flak. An 80 ammo shell detonates just off his right side. The explosion is a physical blow, a solid wall of steel and concussion that lifts his 7-ton fighter and throws it upside down, into a spin. The cockpit is a blizzard of shattered plexiglass and ice-cold wind. Alarms are screaming, but the noise is gone. The right wing from the cannon mounts outward is simply gone, vaporized. He is flying a wreck, a lopsided monster. By every law of aerodynamics, by every calculation, Lieutenant Harris is a dead man. His plane is an impossible asymmetric horror. It should be in a flat spin, a death spiral from which no pilot could recover. He fights the controls, his left leg jammed against the rudder pedal, his arm shaking as he hauls the stick to the left, just to keep the remaining wing level. The plane is not flying. It is falling sideways like a thrown brick. The standard procedure is simple. Bail out. Get out before the spin becomes unrecoverable. He reaches for the canopy release, but then something impossible happens. The P-47 stops falling. It shudders, it screams, but it flies. It hangs in the frozen air, a one-winged testament to an impossible reality. It is a flying corpse, and it will continue to fly for 5 more hours, all the way back to its base in England. This is not the story of an ace pilot. This is the story of how one low-ranking mechanic, with a single illegal and unauthorized engine fix, broke every rule, and turned a 7-ton fighter into an unkillable ghost. Let us rewind to 1943. The United States 8th Air Force is losing the war. Europe is a fortress, and the Allies have chosen to smash their way in through the air. The primary weapon is the B-17 Flying Fortress. It is a masterpiece of design, a bristling porcupine of 50 caliber machine guns, designed to fly in a tight formation and defend itself. The theory was beautiful. The reality was a massacre. The German Luftwaffe, with its Fu-190s and Bf-109s, was slicing these formations to ribbons. The B-17s were not fortresses. They were targets. The bomber crews were dying in horrific numbers. The problem was simple. The bombers could not get to the target and back without a fighter escort. The ideal solution was the P-51 Mustang. It was a revelation, a sleek, beautiful, long-range thoroughbred, the plane every pilot dreamed of. It was also in 1943 a fantasy. There were not enough of them. The production lines were slow. The war would be lost before the Mustangs could save it. The only other plane available in numbers was the second choice, the consolation prize, the plane nobody wanted. The Republic P-47 Thunderbolt. It was not a thoroughbred. It was a pig, a jug. A 7-ton monster built around the largest, most powerful, and most absurdly complicated piston engine in the world, the Pratt & Whitney R-2800 Double Wasp. It was a flying engine, a 2,000 horsepower beast with a cockpit strapped to its back, and it was considered the wrong plane for the job. The core problem was the engine itself. The R-2800 was an 18-cylinder air-cooled radial engine that was a marvel of engineering. It was also, in the eyes of the men who had to fly it, a delicate, temperamental monster. It had a hideously complex turbo supercharger system, a maze of pipes and ducts that was a maintenance nightmare. The Thunderbolt was a short-range interceptor, designed to climb fast and fight hard over its own territory. It was never designed to be a long-range escort. It was never designed to cruise for 8 hours, deep into the frozen heart of Germany. And when the pilots tried to do just that, the engines failed. The true obstacle was not the Luftwaffe. It was the USAF Air Technical Service Command. These were the engineers, the men who wrote the manual, and the manual was law. Their entire system was built on standardization, on factory specifications. The R-2800 engine, they decreed, was a precision instrument. It must be run exactly as the manual dictated. The manifold pressure must not exceed the red line. The mixture must be set for optimum cruise. If you pushed the engine, if you broke the rules, it would disintegrate. It would swallow its own valves, crack its cylinders, and seize, turning the 7-ton fighter into a 7-ton coffin. The pilots and mechanics were trapped. They were fighting two enemies, the Germans in front of them and their own manuals from behind. The pilots, desperate for every last ounce of power to survive a dogfight with a 190, were pushing the engines to the breaking point. They were ramming the throttles past the red line, a setting known as war emergency power. The engineers back at the depots were furious. They saw these pilots as cowboys, amateurs who were destroying million-dollar irreplaceable engines. The mechanics on the flight line were caught in the middle. They were patching up the planes, replacing cylinder heads and watching their friends fly off, only to not come back. They saw the scorched pistons. They saw the warped valves. They knew the manual was wrong. The official doctrine was a suicide pact. The ticking clock was the 8th Air Force's casualty list. The B-17 crews were being annihilated. The loss rates were staggering, unsustainable. The entire strategic bombing campaign, the key to the Allied invasion of Europe, is on the verge of collapse. They were losing the air war. They needed escorts. They needed the P-47s to work. They needed the Jug to be not just a fighter, but a long-range 8-hour mission unkillable monster. The leadership at Technical Command said it was impossible. The engine could not do it. The manual forbade it. The entire system said it could not be done. The solution would not come from a general. It would not come from a design bureau. It would come from a 20-year-old kid on a freezing airfield in England, a low-ranking mechanic with grease under his fingernails, who was about to break every rule in the book. The solution is not an engineer. He is not a general. He is a master sergeant, a crew chief. For the sake of this story, we will call him Joe Kowalski. He is 21 years old. He is from a farm in Wisconsin. He is not a by-the-book man. He is a tinkerer. His credentials are not a degree in aeronautical engineering. His credentials are the grease permanently embedded under his fingernails and a lifetime spent fixing tractors. He is not a soldier, not really. He is a mechanic, a man who sees these 7-ton fighters not as weapons of war but as deeply personal, deeply flawed machines. He is not an officer. He is the lowest-ranking, most overlooked man in the entire chain of command. The man who actually has to touch the engine. Kowalski's status as a non-engineer is his greatest weapon. He does not read the engineering manuals with the awe of the technical command officers. He reads them with the skepticism of a farmer, who knows that what is written on paper and what happens in a muddy field are two different things. His eureka moment comes not from a manual, but from an autopsy. He is standing in the freezing, windswept hangar at his base in England, staring at the guts of an R-2800 engine. This engine, according to the manual, should be a pile of scrap. Its pilot, a young lieutenant, had confessed to using war emergency power for 3 full minutes to escape a Focke-Wulf. He should have melted the engine. The engineers said it was impossible for it to survive, but Kowalski is staring at the pistons. They are not melted. He pulls the cylinder heads. The valves are not warped. The engine is scorched, yes. It is blued from the heat, but it is not destroyed. It is, in fact, perfectly sound. The impossible has happened. The manual, the book of rules, is wrong. Kowalski, the tractor mechanic, realizes the truth that the elegant engineers had missed. The R-2800 is not a delicate precision instrument. It is a brute. It is a monster. It is a Wisconsin farm tractor engine, disguised as an airplane engine. It can take the abuse. The men who wrote the book were not protecting the engine. They were holding it back. He realizes the problem is not the power at all. It is the heat. The standard solution for cruise, the auto-lean mixture setting, is designed to save fuel. It is efficient. It is by the book. It is also, he sees, what is killing the engines. It is starving them of fuel, making them run too hot. When a pilot shoves the throttle forward for war emergency power, this lean setting is a suicide pact. It is like asking a marathon runner to sprint while holding his breath. Kowalski's idea is simple, brute force, and to a tractor mechanic obvious. If the engine is hot, cool it down. And if you do not have extra water, what do you use? You use gasoline. He goes to his superior, a by-the-book engineering officer from Technical Command, a real engineer with a degree. Kowalski, his hands black with grease, tries to explain his theory. He suggests that they break the safety seals on the mixture controls, allowing the pilots to manually drown the engine in fuel during a dogfight. The officer is not impressed. He is appalled. He looks at Kowalski with pure contempt. He laughs in his face. He dismisses him. He calls him an illiterate parts changer who thinks he knows more than the entire Pratt & Whitney Design Bureau. He accuses him of wanting to treat a $1 million precision instrument like a common pickup truck. He threatens Kowalski with a court-martial if he ever mentions this illegal, stupid, and wasteful idea again. This is the catalyst. The hero must break the rules. Kowalski is not a cowboy, but he is the crew chief for Lieutenant Jim Harris. He likes Harris. He knows Harris is flying the big Brunswick mission tomorrow. He knows Harris is a good pilot who will die if he follows the manual. He knows the official solution is wrong. That night, in the cold, dark hangar, Kowalski performs his unauthorized test. He commits his illegal fix. He takes a pair of wire cutters. He walks to Harris's plane, and he cuts the factory safety wire on the red mixture lever, the one the manual forbids anyone from touching. The invention is not a new part. It is not a piece of scrap. It is the absence of a rule. It is the freedom to do the wrong thing. Kowalski's idea is pure unexpert logic. The men who wrote the manual were obsessed with fuel efficiency. They wanted the P-47 to fly like a Mustang, sipping gas. Kowalski, the tractor mechanic, knows this is stupid. The P-47 is not a Mustang. It is a jug. It is a monster. You do not ask a plow horse to win the Kentucky Derby. You ask it to pull the plow. The jug's job is to survive. Kowalski's fix is brute force survival. He tells Harris in secret 5 minutes before takeoff. He taps the red lever. He tells him the manual is wrong. He tells him when the 190s come, do not just push the throttle. Push this. Shove it all the way forward to full rich. Drown it. She will waste gas, he says. She will belch black smoke. But she will not die. The It Works moment is the Brunswick mission itself in the hours before the flak hit. Harris gets into a dogfight. He gets bounced by a Focke-Wulf. The German pilot expects the heavy P-47 to wallow, to fail. Harris remembers Kowalski. He breaks all the rules. He jams the throttle past the war emergency gate, and he slams the red mixture lever full forward. The effect is not subtle. It is biblical. The R-2800 engine, suddenly gorged on power and cooled by a flood of high-octane fuel, does not just fly. It explodes. The P-47 does not climb. It launches. Harris describes it later as being strapped to a rocket. The plane shudders violently. Black soot streams from the exhaust, but the power is impossible. He climbs with the Focke-Wulf, catches him and shoots him down. He has survived a fight he should have lost. He returns to base hours later, after the one-winged miracle. But the first proof, the first test, was that dogfight. The engine, even after that abuse and after the flak, is still running when he lands. Kowalski's crazy idea is proven. The unexpert mechanic with his tractor logic has unlocked the monster inside the jug. The illegal fix is genius. When the dust settles, Harris tells another pilot. That pilot goes to his crew chief. That crew chief in secret talks to Kowalski. A silent, illegal revolution begins to spread across the airfield, one cut safety wire at a time. The engineers at Technical Command are baffled. They see the impossible combat reports. They see the scorched engines that should be dead. They have no idea what is happening. The boardroom where this conflict plays out is not a single room, but Hangar 3, a cavernous, freezing cold Nissen hut on the coast of England, smelling of oil, high-octane fuel, and fear. The illegal fix, Kowalski's practical solution, is spreading. It is a trick passed in whispers from crew chief to crew chief. The pilots are surviving. They are coming home from missions they should not have, their engines scorched and blue but running. The pilots call it Kowalski's cocktail, and the leadership has noticed. His name is Colonel Sweeney. He is an engine purist from the Air Technical Service Command. He is the man who believes in the manual above all else. Sweeney is not a tractor mechanic like Kowalski. He is a real engineer from right field, a man who believes in data, in specifications, and in procedure. He does not see survivors. He sees sabotage. He sees reports of P-47s burning fuel at twice the regulation rate. He sees maintenance logs detailing impossible engine temperatures. He sees pilots openly logging use of war emergency power for minutes at a time, a clear violation of directives. He is furious. He believes these amateur cowboy mechanics are destroying his beautiful, expertly designed engines. Sweeney descends on the airbase like an inquisitor. He is a by-the-book man in a war that refuses to follow the book. He marches into Hangar 3, flanked by 2 subordinates, his clipboard ready. He demands to see the crew chief of the most flagrant offender, Lieutenant Harris. Joe Kowalski, wiping grease from his hands, stands before him. Sweeney does not ask questions. He makes accusations. He points to the logbook of Harris's plane. He demands Kowalski explain how this engine survived a 5-minute dogfight at full emergency power. Kowalski, the unexpert tinkerer, tells him the truth. He explains his tractor logic. The engine runs hot, so he cools it with fuel. Sweeney's face goes purple. This is worse than he thought. This is not just cowboy stupidity. This is active, illiterate heresy. He shouts that fuel is for combustion, not refrigeration. He calls Kowalski a moron. He stalks over to Harris's plane and begins his expert inspection. In 30 seconds, he finds it. The cut safety wire on the mixture control. The conflict explodes. This is the smoking gun. Sweeney holds up the dangling wire. He screams at Kowalski. This is a court-martial offense. This is destruction of government property. This is sabotage. He tells Kowalski he is grounding the entire squadron. He is going to have every mechanic on this base arrested. The war, he shouts, will be won by procedure, not by grease monkeys with wire cutters. Into this fury steps the advocate, Major Clark, the squadron commander. Clark is not an engineer. He is a pilot. He is a desperate man who has spent 6 months writing letters to the mothers of dead pilots. He is the man who has watched the Mustangs get all the glory, while his men die in their 7-ton pigs. He has been quietly allowing Kowalski's fix because he has seen the result. His pilots are coming home. This is the gamble. Clark steps between Colonel Sweeney and his crew chief. He makes the damn the rules decision. He lies to the engineer. He tells Sweeney that he ordered the wires cut. He takes the fall for his mechanic. Sweeney is stunned. An officer? Authorizing this vandalism? Clark points to the flight roster. He tells Sweeney that his squadron's kill ratio has tripled in 3 weeks. He tells him his loss rate has been cut in half. He tells Sweeney that the manual is killing his men, and Kowalski's illegal fix is saving them. Sweeney is unmoved. He sees only broken rules. He tells Clark he is relieving him of command. He is grounding the squadron, starting with tomorrow's mission to Brunswick. This is the final moment of the conflict. The expert is about to win. The by-the-book doctrine is about to crush the practical solution. But Clark makes one last gamble. He knows he cannot win the argument. He appeals to Sweeney's arrogance. He proposes a test, an impossible test. He tells Sweeney he cannot ground the squadron. The mission to Brunswick is too important. He proposes that Sweeney allow the mission to fly, under one condition. Sweeney can personally select one plane, Harris's plane, and personally inspect it tonight. Sweeney can do whatever he wants to it to prove his point, but if that plane flies the mission tomorrow and survives, Sweeney must not only drop the charges, he must recommend the illegal fix to technical command. Sweeney laughs. It is the laugh of the expert who knows he has won. This is not a gamble. It is a suicide pact. He agrees instantly. He knows what he is going to do. He is going to go into that engine and set it back to perfect, beautiful factory spec. He is going to rewire the mixture control himself. He is going to make it impossible for Harris to use Kowalski's trick. He tells Clark he looks forward to his court-martial tomorrow night. The gamble is made. The mechanic and his advocate are trapped. Kowalski's crazy idea is about to be put to the ultimate test. Harris will fly deep into Germany in a plane that has been expertly neutered by the engineer himself. He will be flying a by-the-book ticking time bomb. But Kowalski, the tinkerer, is not an expert. He is a mechanic. He knows Sweeney will fix the mixture wire. So that night, after Sweeney's expert inspection is done, Kowalski commits a second illegal act. He cannot cut the wire again. Sweeney will check it. So he does something else. He goes to the fuel pump itself. He takes a small shim of metal, a piece of scrap no bigger than a dime, and he jams it into the pressure regulator. It is a brutal, ugly, unexpert fix. It is not elegant. It will force the engine to run rich, dangerously rich all the time. It will waste a horrific amount of fuel. But it will not let the engine die. The gamble is on. The ticking clock is the Brunswick mission just hours away. The time is 14:30 hours, 30,000 feet over Brunswick. Lieutenant Jim Harris is flying a dead plane. He just does not know it yet. Colonel Sweeney's expert by-the-book hand has been inside his engine. The safety wire on the mixture control is back in place. The fuel pump regulator is supposedly back to factory perfect specification. Harris is flying a standard-issue P-47, exactly as the manual dictates, and he is flying it into the deadliest air battle of his life. The air turns black, first with flak, the dirty, greasy smudges of 88mm shells, then with the fighters. A swarm of Focke-Wulf 190s, the yellow-nosed killers of Jagdgeschwader 1, dives from the sun, 20mm cannons winking. The bomber formation the B-17's Harris is supposed to protect disintegrates. The sky is filled with fire, parachutes, and falling sections of aircraft. This is the climax. This is the moment the manual was written for. Harris picks his target. A 190, rolling in on the tail of a struggling B-17. Harris kicks his rudder and slams the throttle forward, pushing it past the gate, into the red line territory of war emergency power. The engine roars, but it feels different. It feels thin. It does not have the rocket-like kick that Kowalski's fix had given it. It is the proper, by-the-book power, and Harris can feel it straining, running hot, protesting the abuse. He closes on the 190. He is 400 yards out. 300 yards. His thumb is on the trigger. He is about to fire, and the world explodes. It is not the 190. It is the flak. An 88mm shell, fired blind from the ground, detonates directly on his right wing. The impact is not a sound. It is an event of pure physical violence. A solid wall of steel and concussion hits his 7-ton fighter and throws it upside down into a terminal spin. The cockpit is a blizzard of shattered plexiglass. Hydraulic fluid and 30,000 foot high, minus 40-degree wind. Alarms are screaming, a useless wail against the roar of the atmosphere. But the loudest noise, the 2,000 horsepower thunder of his R-2800 engine, is gone, replaced by the shriek of a dying machine. Harris looks right. There is nothing there. The wing, from the 50 caliber gun bay outward, has been vaporized. He is flying a lopsided 7-ton wreck. He is dead. By every law of physics, he is a dead man. The plane is in a flat spin, falling like a leaf, completely out of control. The manual's procedure is clear: bail out. He fights the instinct to pull the canopy release. He fights the spin. He shoves his left boot against the rudder pedal with all his strength. He hauls the control stick all the way to the left, trying to get the one remaining wing to bite the air, to level the plane. It is useless. The plane is a brick. It is falling, and then something impossible happens. The engine, which had sputtered from the shock, catches. It coughs, belches a cloud of black smoke, and then it roars. It does not just restart. It ignites. The entire airframe shudders, not from the spin, but from a new, titanic, and utterly savage burst of power. Kowalski's second secret fix, the shim jammed in the fuel regulator, has just saved his life. The spin stops. But the plane is not flying. It cannot fly. It has no right wing. It has no lift on that side. It is, by all rights, an asymmetric nightmare that should be unflyable. But the P-47 Thunderbolt was not just a plane. It was an engine with a man strapped to it. And that engine, force-fed a dangerously rich mixture by Kowalski's illegal shim, is now generating a colossal, impossible amount of thrust. The engine is running so hot that the cylinders should be melting, but the flood of high-octane gasoline is cooling them, acting as a crude, brute force refrigerant. It is the tractor mechanic's logic scaled up to 2,000 horsepower. The plane is not flying. It is being dragged through the sky. The R-2800 is pulling the 7-ton wreck forward so fast that the remaining wing and the fuselage itself are generating just enough lift to stop the fall. Harris is in a state of controlled, sideways skidding powered descent. He is flying a one-winged brick, purely on the insane, scorched earth power of an engine that is trying to tear itself to pieces, but cannot. The bafflement is total. A German pilot, the same FW-190 Harris had been chasing, sees the flak hit. He sees the P-47's wing vanish. He sees the American plane fall into the death spin. He marks it as a kill and turns away, looking for another target. A minute later, he looks back, confused. The P-47 is not gone. It is still in the air. It is trailing a thick black plume of smoke, its right side a jagged mess of torn metal. It is flying lopsided, skidding through the sky, but it is not falling. It is impossibly flying away. The German pilot, his mind unable to process what he is seeing, banks his 190 to go and finish the kill. He is an expert in his superior machine. He lines up on the crippled, lopsided American plane. He closes the distance, and the P-47 pulls away. The wreck, on pure brute force thrust from its mangled engine, is still faster in a shallow dive than his own interceptor. The German pilot stares. He is watching a ghost. He is watching a dead man refuse to die. He watches, baffled and confused, as the one-winged plane limps trailing smoke toward the west. The battle is over for Jim Harris. The ordeal has just begun. He is 500 miles from home. He has 5 hours of flight time ahead of him, in a plane that should not be in the air. The physical torture is immediate. To keep the plane level, he must keep his left boot jammed against the rudder pedal with every ounce of strength he has. His left arm must remain locked, holding the stick hard to the port side, for 5 hours. The vibration is so violent his vision blurs. The engine gauges are a joke. The temperature needles are all in the red, buried past the danger markers. The oil pressure gauge reads 0. By every page in Sweeney's manual, That engine should have seized 4 hours and 50 minutes ago. But it does not. It continues to thunder, to scream its 2,000 horsepower protest, drowning in the fuel that Kowalski's shim is forcing into its cylinders. It is a brute force mechanical miracle, an act of sheer, stubborn, tractor-like endurance. His squadron marks him as missing in action. The hours pass. The sun begins to set. His leg is a solid block of cramping agony. His arm is numb. He is flying on instruments he cannot read, his body screaming in protest. Finally, through the oil and hydraulic fluid covering his canopy, he sees it. The gray, cold coastline of England. He finds his base. He is out of fuel. The engine is at last coughing. He has no flaps. He has no right aileron. He has no right wing. A landing is not just dangerous. It is aerodynamically impossible. The tower radios him. Their voices frantic. They tell him to bail out. He is home. He is safe. Just jump. Harris, in a final act of defiance, refuses. He is not going to lose the plane. He is not going to let Kowalski's work die in a field. He lines up the lopsided wreck with the grass runway. He holds it, fighting the skid, his legs shaking. He is too fast. He cuts the power. The plane hits the grass hard. The broken right wing stub digs into the mud. The P-47 cartwheels, a 7-ton lopsided spin of metal and dirt, slewing sideways for 100 yards, and finally, tearing itself to a stop. The silence is deafening. The base fire crews, who had been watching in horror, race to the wreck, expecting to find a corpse. They cut the shattered canopy open. Lieutenant Jim Harris, covered in sweat, oil, and fluid, unstraps. He tries to stand, but his legs, locked in one position for 5 hours, buckle. He falls out onto the grass. He is alive. The plane is a total write-off, a pile of scrap. But as the fire crews douse it in foam, they can hear the engine, the R-2800, scorched blue and black, ticking, ticking, ticking as it cools. It did not fail. The illegal fix worked. Here is part 5. The first man on the scene after the fire crews was not Major Clark. It was Colonel Sweeney. He had been waiting in the operations room for the message that Harris was missing in action. When the tower reported a one-winged P-47 was attempting to land, Sweeney ran, his face a mask of pure, logical disbelief. He arrived at the wreck as Harris was being pulled from the cockpit. He saw the missing wing. He saw the fuselage torn and scorched. And he saw the engine. It was a nightmare. The R-2800 was blue and black from impossible heat. Oil and hydraulic fluid covered every surface. It was ticking loudly in the sudden cold, a sound of metal contracting after an ordeal that should have melted it into a single, solid lump. Sweeney, the engine purist, the man who believed in the manual, was staring at a ghost. He was looking at an engine that had, by his own expert calculations, been running for 5 hours, without oil pressure, and with a fatal catastrophic heat load. It had done the impossible. It had not seized. It had not disintegrated. It had brought its pilot home. His hands shaking, Sweeney began his inspection. He ignored the frantic medics. He ignored Major Clark, who had just arrived. He went straight to the mixture control in the shattered cockpit. Just as he expected, the safety wire he had personally installed was still there. His by-the-book fix was intact. His face hardened. He had been right. The pilot had not been able to use Kowalski's trick. This survival was a fluke. But Clark just looked at him, then at Kowalski, who was standing silently by the fire truck. Clark told Sweeney to keep looking. Baffled and furious, Sweeney went back to the engine. He unhooked the cowling, the metal still painfully hot. He traced the fuel lines, and then he found it, jammed into the fuel pressure regulator, a crude, ugly, and unmistakably illegal shim of scrap metal. The bafflement on Sweeney's face was total. He finally understood. Kowalski had not just broken one rule. He had broken all of them. He had bypassed the manual, bypassed the mixture control, and gone straight to the heart of the engine, force-feeding it fuel in the crudest, most brutal way imaginable.
And this
illiterate tractor mechanic's fix was the only reason Harris was alive. Sweeney, the expert, had set the plane up for failure. His perfect by-the-book factory-spec engine would have died the second the oil pressure dropped. Kowalski's ugly brute force hack had turned it into an unkillable monster. Sweeney stood up. He was a man who had just watched his entire religion collapse. He looked at Kowalski not with anger, but with a strange, hollow look of defeat. He said nothing. He simply turned, walked away from the wreck, and went back to the operations room. The court-martial was never mentioned again. The next day, a new directive, classified top secret, was drafted by Sweeney himself. It was a complete reversal of doctrine. It authorized crew chiefs to remove the safety wires from the mixture controls. It advised pilots to use a full-rich mixture during any high-power settings, citing combat data that the engine could, in fact, withstand the abuse if properly cooled. The illegal fix became the new manual, and what of the humble hero? Joe Kowalski, the Wisconsin farm mechanic, got no medal. He was not promoted. His name was not mentioned in Sweeney's report. His only reward was that Major Clark shook his hand in private, in the hangar. His only victory was that from that day on, his pilot stopped dying. He went back to work, his hands black with grease. Just another mechanic, just another unexpert tinkerer who had, for a few crucial moments, known more than all the engineers in the world. Lieutenant Harris, after 2 weeks in the hospital, returned to flight duty. He would fly 80 more missions, his hand always ready to jam the red lever forward, a living testament to the mechanic who had saved his life. The moral of this story is not a simple one. It is not that experts are fools. It is that a manual is written to protect an engine, while a mechanic is trying to protect a life. The men who wrote the manuals at Wright Field were trying to win a war of logistics, of fuel efficiency, of standardization. But Joe Kowalski was fighting a different war, a war of survival. He, the man on the ground, the tinkerer, the farmer, understood the one truth the engineers had missed. The P-47 was not a delicate, elegant Mustang. It was a jug. It was a 7-ton, 18-cylinder brute force survival tool. It was a tractor with wings, and this is the full circle. The P-47 Thunderbolt became a legend, not for its grace, but for its toughness. It became the plane pilots trusted their lives to. It was the unkillable monster, the fighter that could have its wings shot off, its systems destroyed, and still somehow bring its pilot home. That reputation was not born in the design bureau. It was born in the freezing mud of an English airfield, with a single illegal cut of a safety wire. The tractor mechanic's brutal, ugly, and brilliant fix was the final missing piece. It unlocked the monster, and in doing so, it helped win the war. The unexpert idea, born of grease and desperation, became the new unwritten law of the sky. The bafflement on Sweeney's face was total. He finally understood. Kowalski had not just broken one rule. He had broken all of them. He had bypassed the manual, bypassed the mixture control, and gone straight to the heart of the engine, force-feeding it fuel in the crudest, most brutal way imaginable. And this illiterate tractor mechanic's fix was the only reason Harris was alive. Sweeney, the expert, had set the plane up for failure. His perfect, by-the-book, factory-spec engine would have died the second the oil pressure dropped. Kowalski's ugly brute force hack had turned it into an unkillable monster. Sweeney stood up. He was a man who had just watched his entire religion collapse. He looked at Kowalski not with anger, but with a strange, hollow look of defeat. He said nothing. He simply turned, walked away from the wreck, and went back to the operations room. The court-martial was never mentioned again. The next day, a new directive, classified top secret, was drafted by Sweeney himself. It was a complete reversal of doctrine. It authorized crew chiefs to remove the safety wires from the mixture controls. It advised pilots to use a full-rich mixture during any high-power settings, citing combat data that the engine could, in fact, withstand the abuse if properly cooled. The illegal fix became the new manual. And what of the humble hero? Joe Kowalski, the Wisconsin farm mechanic, got no medal. He was not promoted. His name was not mentioned in Sweeney's report. His only reward was that Major Clark shook his hand in private, in the hangar. His only victory was that from that day on, his pilot stopped dying. He went back to work, his hands black with grease. Just another mechanic, just another unexpert tinkerer who had, for a few crucial moments, known more than all the engineers in the world. Lieutenant Harris, after 2 weeks in the hospital, returned to flight duty. He would fly 80 more missions, his hand always ready to jam the red lever forward, a living testament to the mechanic who had saved his life. The moral of this story is not a simple one. It is not that experts are fools. It is that a manual is written to protect an engine, while a mechanic is trying to protect a life. The men who wrote the manuals at Wright Field were trying to win a war of logistics, of fuel efficiency, of standardization. But Joe Kowalski was fighting a different war, a war of survival. He, the man on the ground, the tinkerer, the farmer, understood the one truth the engineers had missed. The P-47 was not a delicate, elegant Mustang. It was a jug. It was a 7-ton, 18-cylinder brute force survival tool. It was a tractor with wings, and this is the full circle. The P-47 Thunderbolt became a legend, not for its grace, but for its toughness. It became the plane pilots trusted their lives to. It was the unkillable monster, the fighter that could have its wings shot off, its systems destroyed, and still somehow bring its pilot home. That reputation was not born in the design bureau. It was born in the freezing mud of an English airfield, with a single illegal cut of a safety wire. The tractor mechanic's brutal, ugly, and brilliant fix was the final missing piece. It unlocked the monster, and in doing so, it helped win the war. The unexpert idea, born of grease and desperation, became the new unwritten law of the sky.